we're going to be talking to an individual named Jeff Grice from Veloxy, who's going to share with us what it takes to be a sales champion. You guys at this point know that I come from the world of sales. I started in sales right out of high school. I was going to college to be a lawyer, and my goal was to make $60,000 a year as a lawyer. And I started to work for this sales company, and I quickly started to earn $60,000 a year working for a sales company. So I was asking myself a year in, why am I going to school to be a lawyer to make $60,000 when I'm already making that amount of money? And my boss was like, dude, just drop out of school, which was literally it's the most different thing I've ever been told. Teachers aren't telling you to drop out of school. Your parents aren't telling you, right? So when he told me that, I was nervous, but I did it, and it was the best decision I could have made. Doesn't mean it's the best decision for you, but it was for me. And sales completely transformed my life. And this is the first guest that we've brought on the show to talk about sales and what it takes to be a sales champion. And you might be wondering what that means. So let me bring Mr. Jeff Grice up here. And for those who don't know Jeff is a Michigan State graduate and a native Michigander who started his career with his favorite NBA team, the Detroit Pistons. He spent 13 years rising through the sales ranks, and he collected not only an NBA championship ring during his tenure, but also a WNBA championship ring as well. Very interesting. We'll be talking about that. Jeff pivoted his sales focus when he moved his family to Buffalo, New York, and he spent 5 years honing inside sales and BDR skills with Fortune 500 software companies before transitioning to sales and marketing consultation. Today, he's working in the software industry, and he has found a niche in sales enablement, utilizing sales AI tools. He enjoys playing basketball, kayaking, and traveling with his family, with a recent focus on Disney, thanks to his daughter. And I think they're completely opened up now. Am I right there, Jeff?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. When's the next time you're going there, brother?
Next month, actually. My daughter and wife had back-to-back birthdays, so we're going to celebrate those birthdays down at Disney.
Yeah, that's going to be sweet. I heard like really good things from people going there because I heard the lines, maybe not anymore, but a couple months ago, the lines were like really short because everything's opening back up, which in my opinion is a very beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. Jeff, it's a pleasure to have you here, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Let me ask you, let's just jump right into that NBA championship ring, because I've never heard of someone in sales winning a championship ring. So what did that look like and how did that come to be?
Yeah, so I was part of the Detroit Pistons organization during a time when they actually went from being really bad to being really good kind of in a short amount of time. So after those first couple of years when I first started, when they were struggling to even make the playoffs, they quickly rattled off 6 straight conference finals. And then one of those culminated in an NBA championship against the LA Lakers in 2004. So I actually keep this on my office desk here. I don't know if we're visual, but have the ring there. And it was great because Coach Larry Brown was the head coach, and his mantra that whole year was play the right way. And that philosophy kind of carries over into my business life as well. And, do things the right way, and things will typically work out for you.
Very cool. Very cool. So I'm very ignorant when it comes to sports. The NBA ring and the WNBA, were those 2 separate occurrences?
Yes. Yeah. 2 separate leagues, 2 separate occurrences. So our owner at the time, Mr. Bill Davidson, actually won 3 championships in 3 different leagues. He won one with the Pistons in the NBA, the Detroit Shock, and the WNBA, which is a women's league. And then also at the time we owned the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they won the Stanley Cup in the NHL. So it was an incredible period of time.
And this was all under one owner that you served under during this time?
That's correct.
Wow. What exactly were you selling, for those who aren't aware of like the sales aspect when it comes to sports and sport events, and what were you selling exactly?
Yeah, so I was doing all the premium seating. So I was doing suite sales. That was full ownership, partial ownership of suites. It was also all the VIP seating. So you see those people down on the celebrities down on the court. We sold the courtside seats, and then all the season tickets and group sales as well. So I had the privilege of selling everything, basically any ticket that someone could buy walking into the building. And then we had other properties as well. We had 2 outdoor venues that were some of the top in the country and still are today for outdoor concerts and stuff, which was a lot of fun as well.
Wow. Let's talk about those premium seats, man. Let's dig into the details here. What did some of those premium seats look like that these celebrities would be buying? And a couple different questions here. What was like the general cost of those seats? And then I want to dig into what the sales process looked like for that.
Yeah, I mean, individually, they were, it depends on the event. I remember, we had a Mike Tyson event at one time when he was still relevant, and those things were going for like 1,500 per seat, ringside, right? So imagine spending $6K for 4 seats to a boxing match. And then, when the Pistons got hot and started going to all those conference championships, like I was talking about, the prices obviously escalate, and suites can get into the hundreds of thousands. So it was quite a range. Metro Detroit had a very strong base, obviously heavily automotive, a lot of the big threes there, and then all the other suppliers as well. So it was just a great base to sell into.
And you were on the phone during this time, right? People went online and bought seats that way, of course. But when it comes to this high ticket stuff, when we're talking into the thousands here, hundreds of thousands, you were the guy on the phone talking to these individuals, trying to get them to purchase these seats, correct?
Correct. I almost didn't know if it was going to be for me. Like my first month or so was really rough. I mean, I started this position right out of college, right out of Michigan State, had no previous background in sales. I actually have a marketing management degree from Michigan State. And They told me to get started, you need to start in sales. I'm like, that's odd, but okay. So I decided if I was going to get into sales, I wanted to do something that I cared about and could get excited about. Because to me, selling is nothing more than a transfer of enthusiasm, right? So I wanted to do something that I really cared about. And for me, it was basketball. I've been played ever since I was little. And, the Pistons were my childhood team growing up. So I literally kind of got really intentional about what I wanted to do. And it's kind of funny how I even got started. I'll share that with you, Brandon. I literally made like a little binder of why I should work for the organization. One day they came to campus and were interviewing, and then I showed my binder to the interviewer, and he's like, okay, you need to meet so-and-so. I'm like, well, did I do well, or what's going on here? But I was so prepared that he got me right to the next meeting. And then things kind of just fell into place. But it was a lot of fun, because when I got there, I'm dating myself, but now this was kind of before the internet even got hot. I mean, the internet was just coming on, so there weren't ticket brokers and stuff like today, and there wasn't StubHub and all that stuff. So I literally had a yellow pages and a phone, to your point, and I was calling on the phone, prospecting people to take a meeting with me. And I asked my management team, I'm like, how much do these things cost? I'm like, don't worry about the price, just set the meeting, and then we'll get into all the other details, right? So it was literally just cold calling right out of the gate and learning how to do the prospecting and having that rapport quickly with, a CEO or president or a VP of sales on the phone of these major corporations. So that's how I kind of cut my teeth in sales.
So you would make phone calls to organizations that didn't even express interest in being at these events and attempt to get them to set an appointment with you.
But yeah, of course, we had some data about people that had maybe gone to a game or two, but it wasn't, they weren't necessarily raising their hand, say, hey, reach out to me about this because I want to spend, X amount of dollars with you. Right. Yeah. It was truly a cold call. Yeah.
I think it's really important what you said too about a lot of new salespeople, what I found, because at this point, man, I've trained several thousand new salespeople, people who are brand new, people like you who at first thought it wasn't for them because they were getting on the phone. They didn't know how to talk to people. They stuttered. They didn't have a sales process down. And a lot of people were like, well, this isn't for me. And I'd say, why? And they're like, well, I feel weird selling over the phone. And I said, well, that's where you're going wrong. Like, the goal isn't to sell over the phone. The goal is to make that initial contact, gauge interest, qualify whether this is even the right person for this. And then if it is, get them in front of you. And then you can talk details and logistics. Like, even when it comes to cell phones, man, like I sold phones for coming on 10 years now. Mm-hmm. We're not calling and saying, hey, did you want to buy a new cell phone? We're calling and we're asking them, how is your phone doing? Right? Are you in the market for a new phone? And if they're not, we say, okay, great. Well, I'm going to reach back out to you at this point. If they are in the market, then I start going into details, but not all the details. And then I get them in front of me so that I can actually, now that there's been a slight relationship built and a rapport built and an expertise established, now I'll go into the finer details of the sale. I'm curious when it comes to you. So first thing I really appreciate that you said is you were very intentional about what it is you wanted to do, which I think that's a pretty rare thing for people who were, out of school, because I wasn't very intentional. I kind of landed on this sales job and I kind of made it my own because I wasn't really sure what it is I wanted to do. And I branched off from there, opened my own business, but you knew that you wanted to work in the sporting industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how you just put yourself out there and that's how you made things happen. That ambition goes a long way. What about sales at the beginning made you think that it wasn't for you?
Well, let's face it. I mean, any sales position, there's a ton of rejection, right? So when you're getting hit with all that rejection, you better have a good training system in place, because if you don't have that training to kind of reinforce what you're doing, I see a lot of people just kind of either quit or burn out or say, this isn't for me, you know? So I kind of had that grit and tenacity. And because it was something that I cared highly about, it kind of pushed me through those tough times. But yeah, first month was really rough. And then I'll tell you what happened, Brandon. I got my first meeting. I'll never forget it. Pat Clancy. I still remember his name, 20 some years later, right? I go and meet with Pat. I do my thing, my little red carpet treatment. As you said, I didn't sell over the phone. I set the meeting over the phone. And then when I met with him, I did my needs analysis and qualified him, and then when they're, he's like, what do you got? And then I could go into the selling mode. And so he ended up buying a suite. Next week later, I sold another one. And then I was on my way. I ended up leading the department for suite shares that year because, I had some momentum going. But it wasn't until I got that initial big win, and then I got that confidence and that posture, and then it was off to the races from there. But I think that's what I see. A lot of people quit too soon before they get to that point.
Okay, that's really important. First, shout out Pat Clancy if you're watching. Started this man's journey. How long did it take you to really get that big deal and to really spike your confidence and build momentum?
Yeah, I would say it was probably 30 to 45 days.
So over a month it took.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's really important. That's why there's a lot of time, there's probationary periods in a lot of companies to really get your feet wet. You got to learn things, you got to learn the process. You got to learn the product. You got to learn how to talk with people through trial and error. Mm-hmm. I want to touch on rejection because I think that's a huge thing. Like if you are truly a salesperson, you're getting rejected over and over and over every single day. And like you said, you have a system in place, which I want to dig into because I think that's really important. I find that the average salespeople, they don't really get rejected too often. And even some people who think they're great salespeople, I say to them, listen, if you're not getting rejected, it means you haven't even attempted to make a sale yet, right? You're only making a sale when someone tells you no, because that means you finally began to offer them something they didn't want in the first place. Mm-hmm. If you're just giving someone something they want, then that's simply a retail transaction, at
Correct.
least in my book, right? If someone comes in for a cell phone and I just sell them a cell phone, then cool. I was a clerk. Anyone at Walmart can do that anywhere. That's a $10 an hour job. But where sales gets beautiful is if you can, like you said, do a needs analysis, uncover needs that people don't need, right? And then you give them things that they didn't even know they needed. They leave happy. They don't leave thinking that you gave them something they don't need, but it's those extra things that really make a sale. And that's how you really earn a lot of income when it comes to sales. So how did you overcome rejection and overcome objections when they showed up? What was your system?
Yeah. So again, we had a great training system in place with the Pistons. So we actually went out on a retreat and we went over all the objection handling. We had call scripts, all that stuff. We would meet in our weekly cadences and say, hey, what's working, what's not working. So it was falling back on that training and then being in that collaborative environment too, because when you're with a group of salespeople together and you're doing it together, it's not as hard as it's just maybe you by yourself, right, on an island. So that's what I will attribute it to. It was a team environment. And that's what's great about pro sports or any type of sports, right? You're doing it together, and then understanding that a no is not a no forever. It's just not now, right? And I always fall back on the 4 SWs. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting, and that someone's waiting is like the most important one to keep in the back of your mind, because it's the law of numbers. Eventually you'll stumble across, like Pat was someone who was waiting for me to call him because he was thinking about stuff like that. And then if not, some will, some won't. So if not, you're on to the next one. You got to have a short memory when it comes to that rejection and just move on to the next. And then, follow back up with that person 60, 90 days. It could be a completely different story.
Okay, I want to talk about follow-up later because I know that's what you specialize in.
Yes.
That's one piece of the process, man, that a lot of people miss. And one of the reasons why I consistently earn very high figures at the sales company I work with is because I follow up with people who've bought from me and who didn't buy from me. Like most of the sales that I have are past customers.
Yep.
Right. And that's the beauty of sales is you build up that client base. And I'm sure even in what you did, you had people coming back to you over and over and over again for seats and because they built a relationship. They didn't want to work with anybody else.
Correct.
So I love how you said a no is a not now. And I love how you said someone is waiting. When I first started getting on the phone and making phone calls, because I was in retail sales too. So we had the beauty of people walking into us to buy things. But if you really, we always said that would be 60% of your income. But if you really want to succeed, you have to, like you did, go out there and bring in the other 30 to 40% of those people who are waiting for someone to call them because the high point of their day isn't calling to secure the seat for the event. The high point of their day isn't walking into a retail location to buy a product. Like, I don't know if you know this, but you work in telecom a lot. People are more afraid to buy a cell phone nowadays than they are to buy a car.
Is that right?
It's unbelievable because they don't want to walk into our environment, a foreign environment with salespeople. I mean, what do you think about when you think of a salesperson? Like for you, like what are some words that come to mind when you think of the stereotypical salesperson?
Oh, the first thing that comes to mind is pressure, right? People don't want to be pressured. It's that simple. And that because pressure leads to stress. People don't want to be stressed out about making a decision.
And that's exactly what they associate with walking in somewhere.
I mean, you can buy a car now in Carvana, right? You can buy it out of, it's amazing. So, I mean, that's where we're at today.
It's like a little car dispenser. Yeah, those things are crazy, man. Like what we're getting to in this world. Imagine if we could reach out to them beforehand and create a comfortable environment before they even step foot into the store, right? I mean, that's the beauty of what you do now. But I'm sure a part of it. Yeah. So that's rejection, right? You just move on to the next short-term memory. So tell me about this process for these high-ticket sales. So you called it a red carpet treatment.
Yeah. So again, this goes back to training. I had the privilege of taking a Dale Carnegie Sales Advantage course, which I'd recommend to anybody if you can do a Dale Carnegie course. Those are amazing. Learned a ton from that. A lot of public speaking, but just handling objections again and sticking out. Right. So at the end of that Sales Advantage class from Dale Carnegie, I had to do a presentation. We all did. And it was full cycle kind of presentation, you know, the open, the pitch, the overcoming objections, the close, and then asking for a commitment. And so for my presentation, I literally went to like Joanne Fabrics, got a piece of red felt. It was like 20 cents, rolled it up into like a little cylinder, and I would take it on my sits in my face-to-face meetings. And I'd go into these meetings in these boardrooms with these high-level executives, and I'd flick the red carpet across the table. And I said, "Hey, Brandon, picture this. You're walking down the red carpet to Game 7 of the NBA Finals, you know, the Lakers and the Pistons. It's a sold-out arena, but you have seats, you know, in the first row. Is that something you could see yourself doing, you know?" And so I would do this open, and most people loved it. You know, I had a couple people say, "Get that off my desk and don't do that again." But that was part of the fun, right? I had certain clients ask me to come back again and show other people in their organization, like, do the red carpet thing again, right? So it's just being creative and being different, especially today, right? Today's world is so much further advanced technologically and everything else. And at the end of the day, it still comes back to this 8 to 12 touches, right? I mean, oh my gosh, so many people stop short of those 8 to 12 touches to get a commitment, whether it's, hey, let's just have a conversation, or, hey, click on this link, whatever it is, you know, it takes a lot. So I think that's the other thing I would coach people on is just, you got to be persistent, right?
I absolutely love everything you just said there in the 8 to 12 touches. And I think it's important to even say that we have to think of it as a long game. You know, obviously there's shorter sales cycles, there's longer sales cycles, but even the short sales cycles, it doesn't end when they leave. It doesn't end when the phone hangs up. It ends. Well, it really never ends, you know, unless you don't work for that company. Maybe they follow you to the next company or whatever else you're selling. I really like that red carpet analogy, because what I really like what you said is picture this. And when you tell somebody to picture this, they're literally creating a picture in their mind of them walking down the carpet and stepping down the stairs to take their seat to watch this game. They're essentially watching the game in their mind before the game even happens, and they're picturing themselves in that environment. And I found, man, during the pitch, especially once you've gathered enough information, if you can put somebody into that situation before it's even a thing, they've already taken ownership of it. It's kind of like when you test drive a car. right? When you get in a car and test drive it, you kind of, if you had any idea that you wanted it, you're probably going to buy the car, right? And the same thing, you're having them try on that reality before it's even a reality.
Yep.
Is that something they taught you in sales training, or did you learn that through trial and error?
A little of both, right? So, for me, asking for a premium on sporting tickets was just discretionary, right? At the end of the day, this wasn't like life or death stuff. This was, discretionary income. So I had to build enough value in the scarcity. Okay. People want to be part of something. They belong to something, which is be part of that electric atmosphere, right? So it's going to be a sold out environment. It's like, how do you get access to that? So I was selling access and also the VIP treatment. And you could sit in the last row of the upper level somewhere in obscurity, or you could be right down there watching the sweat pour off their face and hear every word they're saying, right? So like you can decide, but I had to build enough value in why would you spend that much extra? Well, here's why, right? You're high-fiving the players when they're running down the court, so. Yeah.
The thing you weren't selling is you weren't saying, hey, listen, the chair that you sit in, it's going to have the best cushion. Right.
Right.
You're going to have the nicest cup holder in the whole stadium. Right. You weren't, but you were, though. You were selling a seat where they're going to sit, but you really sold them on what they really wanted. You sold them on the electric atmosphere. Even what you just said, you can sit up in the nosebleeds, and that word you just said, in obscurity. Like when you hear that, dude, I just saw like a dude in rags when you said that, like in my mind. Or you can be with those who aren't the plebeians, right? You can be with the energy rich, and you can be in the nicer seats. Like you're selling people what they want versus just selling the item for what the item is. And I think that all goes back to what you said about the transfer of enthusiasm, man. Like I see some people talk about products and they're just like, they're monotone. Their body language is completely off. It's very obvious that they don't want to sell this thing. Like people want an experience. Right. People want you to take them by the hand and bring them through this thing. Yeah, that's very interesting. And I want to talk about follow-up, but I do want to ask you, what do you believe was the biggest difference between a sales champion at what you did, a high performer, and somebody who just got by? I'm sure there's always a top person on the team and there's always a lower person on the team. What was the difference between someone at the top and someone who was mediocre?
There are a couple things. I think one is being consistent, right? And then just going a little bit further. So like it's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock on Friday. Most people are cutting out, hitting the golf course. They're trying to figure a way to get out of the office. Like, how are you getting one more conversation in to set your week up next week? How are you booking another meeting on your calendar? So it's those little incremental things that add up over time when you're consistent and you're hitting all your KPIs and you're just trying to do a little bit more. That adds up. And that's what separates the top, 1-3% from everyone else.
Just really going in, setting that one extra appointment that can turn into that one extra deal, which can build even more momentum.
Yeah. And consistency leads to mastery, right? So when you're consistent over time, it leads to mastery, and then you're making your number and making a lot of money doing it.
Absolutely. I love that, man. So how did you go from the world of, sporting sales to what it is you do now with Velocity? You want to tell us about how you made that transition and a little bit about what you do now?
Yeah, so it's almost been 10 years now that I've moved to Buffalo, New York. So when I moved to New York, I changed industries. Things were changing a lot in the sports landscape. Like I said, all of a sudden there was a lot more technology was catching up. So a lot of ticket brokers, things were happening. The team went south. So I decided, my wife's from the Western New York area, so we moved here. And then I got involved. I wanted to sharpen up my inside game because this was shortly after 08, 09 happened too, the last big recession, if you recall. So companies were starting to take some of their outside sales organizations and get them inside to be more effective and efficient. And so I started working for some agencies here in Buffalo that specialized in inside sales. And that really helped me sharpen my axe again, because inside you can do so many things face to face because of body language and everything else. When you're just over the phone, it's a lot different, right? So you got to work on your pace and your intonation and all your voice, right? So there's a lot of different things that people don't think about. So I got good at that. And then I got to work with some really cool software companies over time. And then just kind of to reset again, the follow up with your question, my wife asked me again just recently, and now I'm much older, right? She said, "Hey, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And here I am, been in B2B sales for over 20 years, and she's asked me, "What do I want to be when I grow up?" And she goes, "Give me 3 words, go, don't think about." I said, "Technology, software, and sports." So I actually got to go back into sports for a little bit with a software company that dealt in electronic raffle software. So they did all the 50/50s for these pro sports events. So that was cool because I got to do that for a year, travel to all these places, and then COVID hit, right? And then I had to pivot again. So I guess that would be another suggestion I would get in sales, is just always be nimble, right? And be able to pivot quickly and shift to different things, because things are always evolving, right? So then through a relationship with one of my friends from an agency, when I first started in Buffalo, I got introduced to Veloxy, where I work now. And I couldn't be more excited, because this company is, it's going to be, it's a rocket ship. And it's an AI integration for Salesforce. And I've been using Salesforce since '99 when it first came out, when I started with the Pistons. And this is just helping sales professionals get rid of all the annoying administrative stuff that they hate doing, like logging phone calls and updating spreadsheets and adding meeting notes manually into their CRM. Now all that is handled for you automatically. And so they can do more things which they want to do, which is have more conversations and reach more people. That's really the name of the game. So AI is helping sales organizations do that now.
So we use Salesforce all the time with the sales company I work with. So I know we have to disposition the call afterwards. We have to do all those things like customer contact. We can put notes in there. We can put follow-up dates. That takes a lot of extra time.
Yes.
Right. It really does. And a lot of people spend way too much time on little things like that, when really the money-making activity is speaking with somebody and then getting them in front of you. And a lot of people are like looking at the account for 20 minutes before they make a call. And I'm like, dude, what if they don't even pick up the phone?
Right.
Like, you just wasted 20 minutes. Like, call them and figure it out afterwards. So how exactly, walk me through so Veloxy is essentially a plugin for Salesforce. How exactly does it work?
Yeah. So how it works is it's tracking all your communication, emails, phone calls, text messages, because you connect your CRM basically to our app, right? So what it can do is basically save you an hour of time a day, which we, annualized out. That's saving every rep, every user about $12,500 per rep per year. So imagine if you're an organization and you got a staff of 100 salespeople, right? I mean, that's a huge cost savings right there. And what it does is it helps you follow up more intelligently. We were talking about follow-ups, Brandon. So I'm using Veloxy. It gives you 10 different types of AI alerts. These alerts are beautiful. So it's based on your sales activity with prospects and leads. It's based on geolocation, because we have some geointelligence built into this thing. And it's also built on just a context, right? Like, how are people engaging with your emails and stuff like that. So our email analytics are very, very robust. So I'll be going through my day, making my calls, and all of a sudden I take a break for lunch much later now, thanks to your intermittent fasting, by the way.
Oh, are you doing it? Have you started?
Yes. I'm on about week 3, and I can't thank you enough. It's been great.
How is that going for you?
It's going well, but much like the beginning of my sales career, I wanted to quit after about a week. And I stuck with it, and I'm so glad I did, because I feel so many different changes. It's been wonderful.
That's incredible, brother. Good for you for sticking with it.
Yeah, thank you. So anyway, when I break for lunch, right, I'll have these notifications on my iPhone saying, hey, you should reach out to Brandon, for example, because you've never talked to him at all, or maybe it's been past 30 or 45 days. So these little nudges and reminders that I wouldn't have thought about had it not been for this AI thing. It's like having a virtual assistant right beside you as you're going through your day.
Yeah, that is extremely powerful. Just saving that much time when making these calls, something that a lot of people aren't exactly passionate about doing in the first place.
Right.
It just gets them right to the thing that's actually going to cause a result for them. That's huge. So I wanted to ask you before I ask you where people can find Veloxy and what are you working on next?
Mm-hmm.
Why the world of sales? Like, even after all this time, after 20 years of being in this world and more, like, why continue in sales? What is it about sales that pulls you in?
I love the people. Like, I love meeting people. I love the relationships. So that's what does it for me. And it's the process too, right? Really, sales is nothing more than sort and qualify. You're sorting people to find people that are qualified, and to find people that are qualified, you're looking to find pain, right? And I think that's what salespeople need to be today, are pain finders. Everyone has solutions. As a company, of course, you have a solution, but that doesn't matter unless you find pain from somebody on the other end that needs your solution, right? So that's what keeps me going every day.
I love that. Very cool, brother. So what are you working on next, and where can we find more about Veloxy?
Yeah, so right now we're just out there helping people with this AI solution. So only 21% of sales leaders right now are using artificial intelligence today. What we're finding out is by the end of this year, 54% will. So you can go to Veloxy, that's VELOXY.io/free-trial, and you can trial our software for free for a couple of weeks and see if it might work for you.
Awesome. That link, everyone, I'm going to have right in the description so you can check out Veloxy, especially for business owners and sales leaders who know that this would make a difference. I mean, you said $12,500 per year per rep based on the time that it saves. Like, obviously pretty substantial there for those who are on the phones constantly. Very cool. So Jeff, where can we find and connect with you personally if we're so enthralled with the sales tips you left for us here today?
Yeah, the best way to reach me would be on LinkedIn. Just type in Jeff Grice Buffalo and you'll find me.
Okay. Jeff, it was a pleasure having you here, brother. Thanks for taking the time and sharing these sales tips of wisdom.
Thank you so much, Brandon.
What a conversation. That was Jeff Grice from Buffalo, from the company Veloxy, sharing his story of championship in sales, quite literally. And he shared a lot of incredible principles, whether it's the transfer of enthusiasm, being intentional. I think a big thing that I take away from this is Jeff's clarity throughout his life, obviously with the help of his wife at one point, with her asking him, what do you want to do when you grow up? I mean, let me ask you guys, what do you want to do when you grow up? That's a super powerful question. The more you can be clear on what it is you want, the more likely that that's going to be a reality in your life. We talked about overcoming rejection. We talked about truly creating a red carpet treatment and having the customer or the person you're selling a message or product to visualize the result that you're giving them. Just some incredible stuff. So Jeff, again, thanks for coming on the show, brother. A link to Veloxy is in the description for everyone watching so that you can check out what Jeff is up to with Veloxy and how it can help you, your sales, and your company. And for those who are looking to support the broadcast, like I mention all the time, there's no charge to watch these interviews. I hope you take away a lot of tips and wisdom. I know I do. I take a lot of notes throughout the entire episode. The number one way that you can help support us, the broadcast, is to share this with one person who could use this information. Share this with one person who wants to improve in sales or who wants to live a better life. Hit the share button, send it to them in a text, email, whatever way they communicate with you. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.